Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It's Friday, August the 15th, 2025, and today's topic, going to sketch in this blank area and wrap up the sketchbook page. Well, it's a sketch page. It's not really a book, although I do keep these in a binder. The idea I have is to do some lily pads because this page is sort of random and it's mostly about shapes and stuff. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day, and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. I'll start a 10-minute timer. So to begin with, I'll put a before picture. I worked on this profile yesterday, so I'll just put up a before for those of you that are interested in that. You might find it interesting. You might be interested in how I do it. This is moving into detail. That's pretty much where I stopped. It took about an hour. So it might be helpful to see from yesterday to this one. All right. The tools, the materials are going to be, I picked these pens up the other day. I did a video about them called Tombow brush pens. And they have like a flexible, this one's more flexible, and then this one's like a harder tip, but they're brush pens. So I'm just going to start with this, the harder tip one, to kind of have this look right here. So yeah, I'm just kind of integrating, but it's kind of random subject matter. So in this stage, we'll see how far I can get, but like I like to do it in stages. So in this first one is, I call it sketching. For example, like that's like a sketch. Like there's no light and dark, although it's sort of set up for it. Since this whole page was about simple shapes and line work was like the main thing, gonna stick with that. So for example, this part has jaggedy lines, or angular lines as I called it. So I'm going to just stick with that. I'm going to extend it. And I'm still getting used to these pens, but I mean, I like them. They're flexible. So I'm gonna stick with these angular lines. So I'm gonna go like this. Again, I'm working off of some reference, but so that's like angular and jaggedy. And part of it is kind of creating a border, but without, kind of like this, without using a straight edge. The line is jaggedy. And then as far as like line quality, it just definite sort of practice, obviously, and then just sort of put down that line without messing with it. There's going to be some lily pads right here, and so those are circular, and that's kind of good to contrast it. It makes it look interesting. I'm gonna keep a pretty loose grip and just do these circular, kind of like that, and just practice that. Now they get smaller because of perspective, kind of like this. And then yeah, these circular shapes, they're a little bit more separate. Some of them are together. So it's just a bunch of circles. So keeping a loose grip. So part of this is just the composition, because I thought it would kind of be a nice way to finish the page here. But that's basically the sketch, by the way. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. So the next stage is the light and dark pattern, as I like to call it. There's a lot to be said for that. It's basically values. So you can do it in a few different ways. You can work from light to dark or dark to light. That's kind of one thing. And then also look at like the patterns. So if you can turn the picture into black and white, which I did, it helps. So just an example is I'm going to switch to like the more flexible tip, which is more bold like this. That's what I use for these. So I'm just going to switch to that. And because I switched the picture to black and white, I can see that, for example, like right here is like the darkest areas. So you can do it from like dark to light whenever I sketch this in, that's like working from light to dark, because you have the white of the paper and then you like sketch these black lines, and so that's the dark. For example, here, this is light to dark. So I built it up from the light to like the dark areas. But I'm going to do it differently here. And it just depends on the picture, because sometimes the picture has a lot of dark areas. So just an example is I'm going to keep a pretty loose grip and just start doing this. And give myself some room to make adjustments to fill in some of these areas. That's going to be like the darkest area. And so I like to sort of keep the sketchings, because like the sketch has a lot of energy to it. Like it has a lot of life. But when you go to detail it, kind of what's going on here, it starts to tighten it up, which is what gives it like the detail, is like the small shapes. It starts to solidify it. But the more life you can kind of give it, like the better, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm just gonna do this. So there's these dark areas in between. So I'm just picking them kind of based off of the reference, but then also based off of the sketch, because it's not exactly like the reference. So if you want to start to get a little more detailed, so I'm going to move the paper, because kind of like this, where the pen stroke, so that's what part of what I've been doing this week is talking about line work. So part of it is the line quality, like this. You'll see that you can use the brush itself, and it can look good just by the brush strokes itself. And part of this is just squinting. So once you start doing the light and dark, you have to do a lot of like kind of squinting at it. And then you want to squint at the reference. That's establishing some light and dark pattern already. The next thing would be, because I am using reference, I can see that like there's dark areas, but instead of doing this way, I'm going to go vertical. So that was like horizontal. So I'm going to do some vertical strokes here. And I'm being careful enough, so notice like right here. So although this is the light and dark pattern, you'll notice that I'm also kind of setting up for detail. And by detail, I just mean these careful sort of strokes. Like that could be the finish. So you have some of this effect. So it's an effect. And it's basically wherever these lily pads are, they kind of have the reflections. And then the next thing could be sort of blending, if you want to. So that's like the reflection, but then there's like the surface of the water. Again, this has to do with some line quality stuff, and also the medium, like the pen. So I'm just going to do this. So it sort of starts to blend it. Kind of create a border for it. I'm going to leave some of that white of the paper from the reference. Like the white of the paper is the highlight, which is kind of like sunlight in the reference I'm using. And so I'm going to blend this. I'm going to push this to the back, and I'm going to use I switched the pen to the more like the hard tip. I'm just going to, again, think about like the line work. There's going to be some areas that's like the flowers, is it lotus leaf? So just kind of do this, lay down some tone. but like leave some areas for where some of the flowers might be. That's basically the sketch with the light and dark pattern. The detail would be kind of like smoothing it, pushing the values, like little details. But the main thing is if it kind of fits with like the rest of it. So like I didn't make it like that detailed. This is part of the 4-week commitment to sketching. And so Friday is complete. And that'll be it for today. I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine. And if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.